Rick, what's up, baby?
Hey, Keith Jones, how are you, man?
Dude, I love the glasses.
Well, here's the deal. Just before we did mic check, he had a hot dog, and I wanted to wear these to see if I could see the scraps around his goatee and beard. But he's clean, folks.
Oh, clean. Okay, good, good.
Hot dog residue gone.
I take hygiene, but seriously, man, I like them, man.
Thank you.
I like them.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I'm blind, you know. I'm old, so I'm blind.
So when you're doing deep work, is that what you're rocking?
That's it. Well, you know, the only reason I wear the dang glasses, these are clear. We did a show on vanity, and I thought, you know, I need to be more vain.
Right.
Here I
Okay.
am.
You pulling it off.
Thank you. Thank you.
But no, it really looks good on you.
No, thank you, sir.
Good. So I thought today's show would be on what do you do, or what's your practice when you're experiencing difficulty in life, challenging situations, and they could be financial, physical, health concerns. They can be relationship, something that is challenging for you. You know, to where suffering is showing up for you. You're either stressed about it, anxious about it, resisting it. What do you do to get through that?
Wow, heavy topic. What do you do? Do you have something that works like every time, or are there things that you do depending on what kind of problem it is?
Yeah, it depends on what kind of problem it is.
Give me an example of something that would really hit you hard. Let's say in the emotional realm. I mean, we're pretty good at mending ourselves when we have a setback physically, or when we're in fitness or we're in sports and we get hurt. I think we're pretty good about handling that. What do you do if there's an emotional hit? How do you get past that?
I mean, if there's an emotional hit, I've got kind of like a three-step process that I go through.
Wow.
One is podcast, you know, and hopefully that will knock it out. Listen to someone inspirational. You know, I have my go-tos, Wayne Dyer, Tara Brach. Those are some of my go-tos that I go to right off the bat, and they normally help me. Eckart Tolle is another one that helps me. Really be present to the things I can control, and, you know, negative self-talk and things like that. That's my go-to. If that is not going to like completely eliminate it, I call you guys, man. I call you, I call Tim. You guys, I share very openly. I'm vulnerable with you, tell you what's going on for me. Tell you, I don't so much tell you like what story I'm creating, or what kind of thoughts, the negative self-talk, because you guys aren't trying to hear that anyway. I try to give you the facts, and then you guys help me kind of see it. I'll tell you what I may be struggling with, but I try to keep it totally fact-based. And then the third thing that I do is I jump into meditation and trying to really remind myself of the two things that I did before. What the teacher said, like Wayne Dyer and Tara Brach, and what you and Tim have told me. And that, with the mindfulness, normally helps me get through it.
Wow, that's incredible. That's a great process, and I think that it's been successful for you, right? It has.
It's totally successful because I've gone through some things that have been super challenging for me, to where I wanted to pack up and leave town, or I thought life was over, and those have gotten me through it. I mean, in the best fashion I've ever done, to where the suffering, the time that it took me from the time that I felt stressed or I felt like I was suffering to getting on the other side of it till I was thriving again. Like, the time that it's taken is so short because of my approach now.
Right, wow, that's fantastic. A couple of things that I do that maybe a tad different than you is that, first of all, breathe. Always breathe, and don't say the first thing that comes out of your mouth. You know, you might want to be just taking a step back and make sure that you're processing yourself and calming yourself down in a way where you have a clearer view of what's going on. The second thing is networking, like you do. I call you guys, you call whoever it is that are important in your life. And the third thing, I think, for me, I've got a couple more than three, but the third thing for me would be to try to look at the problem as not being a problem so much as it is an obstacle or an opportunity.
Oh yeah,
and I mean, even if it's crappy, even if it's a situation like I flunked a bar, which I did. I flunked the California bar. There was an opportunity in that, and it ended up me living in a great house and in Sedona, and being with someone that is really special. And I love the idea of turning those things that are crappy into things that are great. There's a saying in Zen about the lotus, And the idea is that the lotus grows out of a pond where there's nothing but silt and garbage. And the saying is that, no mud, no lotus. You have this beautiful flower that comes out of garbage. And I think that's a thing that if you can kind of look for those little angles on a terrible problem, that's helpful as well. Fourth thing, and then I'll give you one more, 4 and 5. The fourth thing that I think is important is to realize that there's nothing new under the earth, under the sun, that we're all on earth together, that people have probably experienced something
Absolutely.
very close to what you have. And
Yeah.
like you say, the podcasts help you because those folks are trained and they often help with ideas that we may not have thought about. I like to go to philosophers. There's a guy named Alain de Botton, Debotton. He's a writer, and he writes about philosophical approaches. I mean, the old Greek, Latin philosophers talking about how they dealt with adversity, and one of whom I really love is a guy named Seneca. And Seneca's notion was that you can never stop any obstacles that are coming at you. That's all life is, day after
Right,
day after day.
right.
Some are hitting, some are really taking their toll on you, some are nothing. But the ones that really take a toll on you, you have to realize a couple of things. They're not directed at you necessarily,
Right.
they just occur. And to deal with them means basically to put aside all of the feelings that you have about being a victim.
Right. Yeah.
And then the last thing, very last thing I'd say is the 4 agreements work great. I think the 4 agreements
No doubt.
are really important. The idea is that you always, always, always do your best. And that you always, always, always tell the truth. You be your word. You live your word. You be your word. You also don't presume. You don't think that you know what somebody else was doing or what the cause of what happened to you was, and it was directed at you personally. And lastly, you don't make assumptions about what occurred. And if you can master those, and they're very difficult to do, but I think that whole configuration of stuff is helpful. All of that will be in the show notes too for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Rick, for sharing that.
No, thank you.
I'm going to look up those philosophers and those authors that you mentioned. I think, I want to say that the second step that I do, what's really important with that is that next step is so important, the people that I talk to, like you and Tim, that you guys remind me to do things and I commit to doing them that help me get on the other side of it faster.
Yeah.
So the people that you talk to, who they are, the game that they're playing in life is super important.
Yeah, boy.
So if they're going to tell you, hey, you know what, I've been there and it's awful and you should be upset, and if they're the kind of people that are going to help you stay in victimhood a second longer than where you are, I strongly suggest shooting someone else. My friends, Tim and Rick, that's not what they're going to do. They're going to help me. Obviously, I can express and be with the emotions that I'm feeling. They're not going to tell me to deny them, but they're also going to help me process through it so I can get to the other side of it, faster and whole. So that's super important. They're also going to remind me to focus on what's good about the situation, or the good that's in it, and to express gratitude for where I am. So Rick and Tim may say, hey, listen, man, you should be grateful for your health because you're strong enough to get through this. They're going to remind me to be grateful for the things that I do have that are good, that are going to help me get through it. And then, one more thing that they're going to remind me of is you're not a victim here. I know how it looks, and yeah, you can be right about this having happened and it being unfair or you being wrong, but that's not going to help you get on the other side of it. And then the other thing that I do too that wasn't included in my list is I practice being of service.
Nice.
So when I was going through the most difficult
Wow.
period of my life,
That's a great angle.
I kind of borrowed a chapter out of people that have struggled with addictions, and they've gone to programs like AA. And one of the things that they do is they say, hey, listen, be of service to other people. And because when there was this documentary that I saw on this guy who was a basketball player, he thrived in college, but he had a drug addiction. And it really, it did a number on his life, his relationship, and obviously his earning potential. He was drafted in the NBA to the pros. His career was over. Wow. But he had to go to AA, and one of the first things they made him do was they made him wash dishes. He had to go every night, and he had to wash dishes in this place that they fed the homeless. And he was this big sink, hot water, it's hot in there, he's washing dishes. And he said it was in that space that he was able to feel worthy,
Wow.
that he had something to contribute instead of hurting other people in his life, hurting himself, taking a wrecking ball to his dreams and his aspirations, he was able to take this one thing every single day and contribute to others and make a difference. And I thought about that. And so when I was going through my difficulty a few years ago, I said, man, this is an opportunity to volunteer. And part of me was like, the ego was like, no, you need to focus on your business and salvaging it and rebuilding it. I'm like, this is part of me being able to do that. I got to find a way to contribute and give back that has no direct benefit back to me. Right. Like if I'm doing stuff in my business and working harder, that's to get more business, to make more money. There's some kind of payback to me. But when I'm going out there, not being paid anything, no one really knows my name, there's nobody that I'm going to be interviewed for, like, hey, Keith, what'd you do today? Hey, I went down and I volunteered and I helped at the hospital. No one knows it. So when I was doing that, man, it just really helped me get through that period and focus on not my problems, what I was going through, but being a contribution.
I think there's a lot to be said for being anonymous like that. When you're volunteering and no one knows you and you're not doing it for money, you're doing it out of the trueness of your heart and your willingness to help other people. That anonymity, I think, is a reward because it takes you out of your own head. Even though your intent is to help other people, one of the collateral effects is that it really ends up helping you. Right. I'd like to add one other thing that I think is really important. I think a lot of us are so estranged from nature that we tend to take ourselves so dang seriously. We're reading the paper, we're listening to news. All of those things create an environment that I think is frankly toxic. And when you put all of that together with the stress you have in your personal life and traffic and not paying the bills or not having enough to pay the bills or having to put off the vacation, all of that taken together creates an enormous amount of stress on a human being. Remember that we're natural people. We're people who came of the earth and we're part of the earth and we're part of everything that's around us. And if it's at all possible, even if you live in an urban environment, to be somewhere where there's green.
Right, the park.
Take your shoes off, take your socks off, walk on the grass, and just connect with the earth again. Lay on your back, look at the sky and the way the trees flicker against the sky. Anything that will make you believe that you're part of something greater than yourself. And if religion is a component or spirituality is a component for you that's important, that's a perfect launching point for you to get closer to what you believe are the truths of life.
Yeah, so let's make this real before we close the show.
Okay.
What's a difficult situation that you went through and in the past that you didn't handle in a way that you would handle it now? And what's something that's more recent that you've gone through that was challenging and you handled it completely different?
Okay, past example was my divorce in 2008. I was very much still a competitive guy. I was still an A-type lawyer. I was hard driving. I really wanted things to be my way. And when things didn't go my way, including the divorce, which I thought there was absolutely no basis for believing I did anything wrong, and of course I was at least half responsible for that blowing up, I rebelled and I acted out and I was a jerk and I'm not proud of the fights that I had with her, the arguments that I had with the lawyers and so forth. And I would not handle it that way again. Something more recent is I flunked the California bar for the 50th time. How many times am I going to come clean about this? My biggest mistake in life. Okay, so I flunked the California bar in 2012, but it was a great opportunity for me because it ended up giving me things that I have in my life that I never had before. And the way I dealt with that was pretty much like I explained how I would deal with anything that's a big emotional hit. Backed up, took some breaths, got out in nature. Tried to be my word, tried to focus on the things that I had, the positive things that I had, and also look for the opportunity in the loss. And I think also really important, I was very proud of myself that I wasn't a victim. I told everybody that I flunked the bar. I mean, it was kind of like a badge of honor in a way.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's important. Before we close, I want to give some tips, and I'd like you to share some too. And one of my tips, if you're going through a difficult situation, and we've said a few, but I want to just kind of recap them. One is breathing. I mean, the breathing exercise is key, and the science is out that people that are in stressful occupations or in stressful situations, whether it's doctor, attorney, corporate, a corporate gig, parenting, caring for aging parents, whatever the situation may be, the breathing it roots you. It brings you back to the present moment, and you're able to take a moment, slow down, and disconnect from the negative chatter that's in your head. Rick will never tell you this, but I will. Rick did a breathing CD for a lot of our members a few years ago, and I still listen to it today, and it keeps me present to the present moment and what I can control and what I can't. The other thing would be the circle of people that you hang out with and you share things with, that you can be vulnerable with, is super important, and they can influence you in a very positive way to get through what you're going through, or in an adverse way that sets you back or keeps you in that same spot. I know people that have been divorced 20 years and they still have that same story about what he or she did,
Right.
and they haven't lived a happy day in 20 years. And so that can be your story, or you can surround yourself with people that won't allow that to be your reality. And I have that in my friends. The other is gratitude, being grateful for where you are and what you have and the things you do have in control. And then being of service. Those are some of the things that I would say. Rick, what tips would you give?
Being open to nature, reconnecting with nature, realizing that you are a very small speck in the planet, and basically whatever your problem is not that big a deal. It is for you, but in the reality of things, it ain't. It ain't. Neither you or your problem.
That's right. Even if it's death, pending death, it's
coming.
really small.
It's coming.
It's coming for all of us.
Yeah, and I think also the nature opportunity will allow you to, I think, have a better relationship with whatever your spirituality is. That's bound to have a connection to it, I think.
Absolutely. And all this is going to be in the show notes, including the person with the drug addiction who I mentioned before and how they got through it by being of service. We'll include where you can pick that up or watch that on Netflix or one of those other kind of video media.
Well, one other thing before we go. If you or anybody in your family is suffering from something like severe depression or anxiety that comes about from some strong emotional hit, we strongly recommend that you get professional help. Counseling, there's plenty of free counseling around. We'll also put in the show notes some places where you might be able to get some help. But don't suffer in silence. You need some professional help if it's really clinically a problem for you.
Absolutely. Talking about it, being vulnerable, being open is so important. Just like Rick said, whatever you're going through, lots of people have been through it before. And there's so much that you can learn from to get on the other side of it. And we just want you to be happy and to live your best life. And whatever you're dealing with, you can get through it.
And now we have to go because another hot dog is waiting for Keith. Sorry.
Anybody who knows me knows.
Yeah, I knew he was going to let that go.
I'm vegetarian. I can't let two hits about hot dogs ride. I can't let it ride. Rick, thank you for a great show, baby.
I love you, buddy.
I love you too, man. Thank you.
Adios.